Hi Internet, this is Caden. I hope you guys are doing well. So, there's something I wanted to talk about today. Yesterday, I had a friend come over my house, and he was spending the night, so it was late, and we got into this big old discussion about trans, and he was asking me about what all these different things mean. He was asking me about like what differentiates transgender from things like genderqueer and things like that, and some relatively complicated gender theory type things. And at one point, I mentioned that I like to think of trans people as almost transcending gender. And he proceeded to get really offended at this. Basically, he interpreted it as me saying that trans people were better than cisgendered people. And actually, I can read his text. Also, if you want me to help you come out to your parents, you can't say shit like trans people transcend the gender binary. Being trans does not make you any fucking better than people who aren't. And don't get so fucking defensive about it. And I think at the time, it was late, it was like 4 in the morning. I probably meant to say the word transgress, but it was really late and all that. So I said transcend. But the more I think about it, the more I really stand by what I said. And so I'd like to talk about that. First, I want to talk about the words themselves. Transcend versus transgress. They're very similar words, and they both come from the root trans, which is obviously the root of transgender or transsexual. I'm not going to go reading definitions and stuff because you guys are smart enough to do that on your own. But I think of transgression as a sort of breaking of a law. You hear it a lot in Christian literature to talk about when people have sinned or when people have broken commandments. For example, in David, it says, "Wash me from mine iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin, for I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me." And so you hear the word transgress and transgression a lot in discourses around the Bible and everything to talk about breaking a law, and breaking a law in a bad way. Breaking laws is usually considered bad. Um, and trans people do break laws. They do. Because the gender binary, the thing that says people who have vaginas wear dresses and people who have penises play with trucks, trans people break those laws. And lots more laws. The gender binary is basically a culturally constructed, non-verbal set of laws that we're all conditioned to abide by. And people who are trans, by their very nature, do not abide by these laws. They break them because our system of gender in this country, in this culture, I should say, says that you can't change your pronoun. You can't do this. You can't do that if you were born with a penis or if you were born with a vagina. And trans people say, no, that's not true. That's not who I am. I've heard terms like transgressively gendered to describe trans people. But I think it's very accurate to use the word transgression when talking about trans people because it implies a sort of breaking of laws or boundaries. But the word transcendence, it doesn't have that kind of negative connotation that transgression does. And transgression can or cannot have a negative connotation depending, but the word transcendence is very similar to the word transgression in that it implies a breaking away of some sort of norm or some sort of law. But transcendence has almost that the connotation of rising above something, of leaving something behind. And I'm sure not all trans people would agree with this. Not all trans people would describe themselves this way, and that's great, that's fantastic. But me, I think of myself as transcending gender. And I think of other trans people as transcending gender. Because I think that trans people, by their very nature, have been forced to break apart from the molds and the laws that they were conditioned their entire lives to abide by. And I think because of that, being trans forces trans people to look at the world through new eyes. It forces people to question gender, to question privilege. to look at gender in a more holistic, understanding, really deeper thinking way. And for a lot of trans people, myself included, trans can mean breaking away from the gender binary entirely and leaving it behind and finding a new space, saying that humanity is not defined by gender. Uh, Looking at the deeper levels of really what makes a human a human. Where do we get these cultural constructions of what a man is and what a woman is? How can I break away from those? I think it's definitely a kind of um, a more informed, a more holistic, a more understanding, and a more enlightened way to look at gender. Because of that, I do think that trans people transcend the gender binary. I think that trans people rise above the cages that the gender binary puts people in, or tries to put people in. Now, I don't think that just because you rise above something or you leave something behind makes you better. That just means you're different. Transcendence kind of implies a more of something. Having more of something or being higher, quote unquote, than something doesn't mean better. I mean, you could think so. I mean, I've had people praise me. I've had people call me brave and say that they would never be brave enough to be trans, and say that, as hard as it is for me, maybe trans people are better people because we're forced to look at the world in a different way than most people. We're forced to think about things that most people would never even dream of thinking about. If that makes me better, then fine. I'm not saying that makes me better. I don't think it does. I think that people are people. That just makes me different. People have more of one thing and less of another than everyone else. It makes them different. It doesn't make them better. For example, during World War II, Hitler had more power than most people in Europe. Does that make him better? No, it does not. um, he was more powerful. He was more dangerous than most people in Europe at the time. Does that make him better? No. It makes him different. He was on a different plane. But does that mean that he was superior to anyone else? No. I think that or I should say I, think that I have come to a place, and I've kind of been forced into a place where I have risen above the stranglehold that the gender binary has tried to put me in. Thus, I have transcended gender, or at least I'm starting to. I'm still totally new at this, and I'm still gaining a different understanding of gender and my gender and the way that gender works in society every single day. So, it's a journey. It's not just a finished process. And also, I think that you don't have to be trans to transcend gender. I think that someone, I don't know, let's say a man who identifies as femme transcends gender. Because the gender binary says, no, men don't do this, men don't wear pink, men don't wear pretty clothes, men don't wear heels. And that femme identified guy says, no, I can do this. He's transcending gender. He's rising above those rules and laws and constructions that try to keep him kind of chained down. If a woman wants to be a bodybuilder, the gender binary says, no, men have muscles, men are supposed to be strong, and women are supposed to be submissive and soft and weak and supple and all that kind of stuff. And that woman says, no, I want to do this, and I'm not going to abide by these rules. Thus, she is transcending gender. So, yeah, even though it might not have been what I meant to say at the time, I definitely think that trans people transcend gender, and we transgress gender. But the reason I like to use the word transcend is because, as I said, transcendence implies kind of a rising above. And I think of myself being in a happier, more at peace, and more understanding place in my life now, um, as a result of opening my mind in this way. And as a result of questioning these rules and everything. I mean, it's hard, but I think that I've come to a place where I like the point of view that I'm gaining about the world. I feel so much more empowered. I feel so much more knowledgeable. I feel so much more informed and just free because of this understanding of gender that I've sort of started to gain and will continue to gain forever, basically. Yeah, does that mean that I'm better than cisgendered people? No. It means that I think about different things and I have a different perspective of the world. Does that make me better? No, it makes me different. Some people might say it makes me better, and that's great. And you're probably a cool person, and I like you, and I want to talk to you. but no, that doesn't make me better. That makes me just a regular old different kind of person. And plus, like who is a person who is steeped in cis privilege to get offended by what I said and be offended by their perception that I'm saying that I'm better than them. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like you have so much privilege than I do already just by the very nature of your gender identity. I don't think you have any right to be offended by me saying that the struggles I've gone through might have actually changed my point of view for the better. And it's something that most people don't have to think about. But anyway, yeah, that's my view on gender transgression and transcendence. I stand by what I said. I hope you guys got something out of this. If you don't agree, if you have something to say, please let me know. Just please don't be a jerk and cuss at me, and let's have a friendly discussion. Thank you. So, yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye. Also, sorry I already finished the video and everything, but something that you guys may find interesting is online. I was typing in, like, gender transcendence to see what people said, and I found a course syllabus for some college, for some anthropology course called Transcending Gender. And the course description says, how do humans become male and female in different societies? Can men become women and women become men? And what other gender possibilities exist? Is male dominance universal? What are the sources of male and female power and resistance? Do women have a separate culture? What is the relationship between gender, militarism, and war? This and other questions will be explored in a cross-cultural perspective. We will address these issues through an immersion in the gender systems of a number of different societies. Yeah, that course sounds to me like a course that is looking critically at the cultural construction of gender and the way that it puts humans in boxes and everything. So in a sense, it's, rising above and taking a more holistic, culturally relative view at all these things that we call gender. And so it's transcending gender. Thus the title of the course, Transcending Gender. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, so thank you. Bye.